It's on creating accessible resources in Word. It's 1 o'clock, or just gone 1 o'clock now. My name is Chris Rowell, and I work as an academic developer in CRIT. So my job here in CRIT is to work closely with the academics, looking at a lot of the digital resources and how they're used in teaching. So this is the first of three webinars that are going to take place over the next few weeks. So the first one today is on Word, using Word. Next week's one is going to be on PowerPoint and Excel. And in 3 weeks' time, I'll look at images and recordings. So that's video, basically. Well, and audio as well. Okay. All right. So just before I get started, a couple of things I'm going to do. So I'm going to show you, if you want to make a comment, then you can use the there's a chat room facility. So on the bottom left hand corner of your screen, can you see there's a little speech bubble? If you click on there, you can join a conversation. So you can type in, if you've got a question for me, hello or something like that, so just type that in there. As I go through, I'm going to do a presentation. It's difficult for me to actually answer loads of questions as I go through it, so I'll pretend to pick up the questions towards the end. Also, I've muted your microphones, so I don't want loads of people talking all over me. Again, if you've got a question, use the chat room facility. I've got the camera switched on at the moment, but again, I'm going to switch that off in a second, just so that we can concentrate on the live sort of demo that I'm going to do. Okay, hopefully that's clear. So I'll switch the camera off now. Okay, so the aims of this session, basically I'm going to speak for about 15 or 20 minutes. So I'm not going to do hours and hours of talking, so I'm just going to do a short demo. And we're going to look at today how to make Word documents and PDF documents more accessible to all types of learners. So the focus of this is actually Word documents that are actually uploaded into the VLE Moodle as well. So in addition to that, I'll just give a brief demo of a setup in Moodle as well. So again, aim to do that in 15 or 20 minutes. I've not done this before, so I've got a little script, but hopefully I'll keep that down to 20 minutes. That's my plan, and as I say, more questions I'll take towards the end. First question then is, why am I actually doing this video, this webinar? And basically because it's the law. A couple of years ago, there was a European Union Web Accessibility Directive, and basically it said all public organisations, which obviously include universities, they must make their websites fully accessible. So all existing websites, including the VLE, including Moodle, must be fully accessible by September 2019. So that's not a lot of time, and basically all the resources within Moodle need to be updated for that deadline. And because it is the law, ultimately the university could be prosecuted if it didn't achieve that by September. So it's not an option. What I'm saying, this is not a nice extra, it is the law. This needs to happen. Okay. What I'm going to do then is I'm going to go into Moodle now, and I'm going to flip over to a different view. So I'm going to come out of my slides view and I'm going to go into Moodle. So just bear with me for a couple of seconds while I transfer. Okay, so hopefully you can now see in front of you, oh hang on, you can now see in front of you a Moodle module called 1819 e-learning. Now, essentially, I'm going to talk about a Word document in a second, how to make that Word document more accessible. But basically, it doesn't really matter how accessible it is if the students can't actually find it in the first place. So it's really important that there's very clear navigation within the Moodle module. Now, I've set up this Moodle module here based on a Moodle template, which is based on the Moodle baseline here at LSBU. So if you want to import this template, then you can go to the Moodle help section, which is the blue button up at the top, and there's some downloads, some guidelines on how to import this template. But if I just very quickly, in about 3 or 4 minutes, just show you the basic structure of how to lay out your Moodle module. This is what we recommend that you do. So you're probably familiar with this sort of overall layout. So on the left hand side, we've kind of got an index to the actual to the course. So I've got various sections. Before the weekly section starts, we've got 3 sections: Moodle overview, assessment and feedback, resources and learner support, and then the various weeks. So let me just look at the main structure then. So at the top of the page, we've got announcements and meet your peers, which are chat rooms. The Moodle overview, if I click onto there and go into it, Moodle overview would typically give you things about orientation of this module, a module guide, some details about the staff teaching on the course, and the module evaluation questionnaires. Assessment and feedback, again, these are clearly labelled in terms of what the students actually need to do in terms of to submit their work. So we've got an assignment brief, submission areas, and some details about exams or test information. Thirdly, we've got resources and learner support. So we've got things in here like FAQs, module study guide, maybe sample essays or sample exam questions. And then we go into the sort of weekly structure of the course. So if I click into week 1, we've got a nice simple structure here. So we've got a very brief outline of what's in week 1. So this section includes lecture notes, additional notes and activities, further study, and then we've got 3 subsections. So we've got a PDF from the lecture notes, we've got additional resources, we've got further study, and we've got various PDFs, links, and Word documents in there as content. And guys, basically we follow the same structure. So there's a level of consistency going on here between all the various weeks. So week 2, week 3, and so on. And this way students get used to the structure and they can actually find what they're looking for very easily. Okay, all right, so that's just a few words about the actual layout of Moodle. What I'll do now is I'm going to open a Word document and then look at some of the features in here that you can use. So okay, so now I've opened a Word document and you should see in front of you the Word document. It's headed Creating Accessible Resources in Word PDF. So this might be a document that you've already got in your module, and I'm going to go through it, look at it, and just show you what some of the things that you should be doing, some things that are sort of good practice. And if you can make these things almost second nature to the things that you're actually doing, in time you won't actually think about it too much. There's no denying, and I'm not trying to deny this does involve some extra work. And it will do, especially if you've already got documents in your VLE, you will need to do these things. But as I say, they're good practice, not just for students with disabilities, but for all students. Find all of these features really helpful. So first thing is to think about, well, how do we actually check our for accessibility? So we can use the Word accessibility checker. So if I go up to File on the top left hand corner, click on File, and then the second one down, I've got the box that says Check for Issues. So if I click on Check for Issues, I get 3 options again, and select the second one, Check Accessibility. So what happens here is I'm using the Word accessibility checker, and this little box pops up on the right hand side. So it tells me what's wrong straight away, or tells me some of the features that maybe need to be looked at in terms of this document. So on the right hand side, we've got the heading Errors. So the first one says missing alt text, and there's 2 items with that. So if I click on that, we've got picture 1 and table. So if I want to find out where the picture is, click on picture, and that's going to take me to that picture there. And straight away it tells me, okay, there's a picture added, but we need to add some alt text to that picture. And likewise to the table, which is just below it. And then it gives me some information about the table, and further to that it gives me warnings as well. So these are some other issues that we need to think about, which I'll come back to in a few minutes. Alright, so that's a really good place to start in terms of checking the accessibility of your Word document. So it tells you straight away some of the issues that you can do, and also why you will need to fix it and how to fix it as well. Okay, well let's look at this document then and think about some of the things we can do. All right, first thing is to think about using some sort of, or giving some sort of structure to this document. So, oh, I've just got a message in. Hi Bethan. Oh, you're not getting any audio. I'm not sure why that is. I did test it beforehand. Maybe check your settings on the actual, I mean obviously on the computer, but if you've got a Skype icon at the bottom of the page, if you click on that Skype icon, and what happens is that Skype icon will pop up on your screen, and then where the little cog is, if you go to Tools, if you click on Tools, you can check your audio settings in Tools there. So have a go at doing that. I'll carry on talking in terms of giving my presentation, but if you don't get any joy with the sound, what I suggest you do is I'll do a recording of this, and I'll definitely send you the link to it. Okay, so I'm going to go back in terms of where I was with the Word document. So I say the first things first is to check your headings, so to give some sort of structure. So I'm going to do this very quickly. So first of all, we'll give this we'll go up to this, we'll highlight the actual heading, we'll go up to styles, and we're going to select heading 1. Then the next subheading I'm going to call introduction, and I'm going to give it heading 2, and then the next subheading I'm going to go Word accessibility checker, give it heading 3, and then so on, and give that heading 3. So what that allows people to do, so when students who are using a screen reader, when they come to listen to this record, or when they come to read this and hear the audio recording is going to tell them the basic structure of this Word document. So they can see what the heading is, they can see what the subheadings are, and they can navigate through this document really easily. But again, even for people without disabilities, that's quite a useful function to use in a normal Word document. So that's the first thing, using headers. Secondly, use meaningful hypertext links. So what I've given here is an example of a bad link and a good link. So this is quite common, and you see this in a lot of documents where it says click here to learn, and then click here with a full sentence, click here to learn the difference between accessible, usable and universal design. So a screen reader is basically just going to read that click here and then go on to the rest of the sentence. So it's not immediately apparent that actually what that link is going to take them to. Likewise, if you just put in the full link, there's no context there, so actually students won't actually know where that link is going to take them to. This is a much better way of doing it. So putting the link in gives some sort of context. So basically it says learn the, and then difference between accessible, usable and universal design. So actually that puts in the text. To actually add a hypertext, you highlight the actual word or phrase you want to use. You go to which will give you how do you need to actually add the hyperlink. Okay. Thirdly, a third tip is to use alt text. So again, if you insert a image or photo or anything visual into a Word document, again, somebody who's partially sighted will know, using a screen reader again, won't actually realize what's in that unless you put something into the alt text. So what the screen reader will do will read a description of that image. To add an alt text, you click on the image and then you right click and then you get this option tab. So select the bottom one, which is format picture. And when you get the format picture, this pops up on the right hand side. So you get 4 options. You select the third one, layouts and properties, and it asks you to add a title and a description. So I'm just going to add a title, so I'm going to put in photo of cake. So this is what the screen reader will initially read this out, and then the student can actually decide then whether they want to read listen to the description. So description needs to be a little bit more detailed. So I'm going to put a photo of chocolate cake. All right. So that it's relatively easy to add alt text. So it's right click, select format, and then alt text. Okay, a fourth little tip would be adding tables to your actual Word document. So to add a table, we go to the ribbon at the top of the page, go to insert, click on table, and then we've got the option to actually insert the table. So I've actually got one added here. Again, what's important here is that you try and keep the table as simple and as logical as possible. Also, it's a really good idea to add a header in terms of telling the screen reader which is the top of the table, which is the top row of the table. So to do that, we just click on the top row, highlight it, and again right click and select table properties. Once table properties pops up, we can select row, And then what we need to do is select repeat as header row at top of each page. So if I click on there and then unselect allow row to break across pages. So what that's telling the screen reader is basically that row is the top of the table. Whilst we're there, we can add an alt text as well. So again, a description of what's actually the table is all about. So these are some stats on salmon fishing. So the title will be salmon stats. And I've put in a short description of what the table's about. Okay, the other things are relatively straightforward. So font type, again, I would definitely recommend that you use sans serif fonts. So these are the ones that don't have lots of sort of detail to them. So the ones that I would definitely recommend and are easier to read are Arial, Calibra are the two main ones. But there are other ones as well that are sans serif as well. So Helvetica, Tahoma, and Verdana. Okay, again, text and colors. So don't use what I've done here. So make sure that if you're going to use colors, or avoid putting similar colors on top of one another. So obviously this red background needs to go. So if I go back up to the home, get rid of the background color, no color, and the text, we can put that as dark blue or something. Okay, so make sure that the contrast really between the colors is clear, so that they can be read easily. Okay, seventh little tip: using lists makes it a lot easier and a lot more accessible to read the document. So this is a little paragraph here, so we could actually divide this up into 2 bullet points. So we can do that by splitting them up and selecting them and using the tool at the top, which is the bullet points tool. So we click on that and instantly you can see we've now divided that little paragraph into little bullet points. Again, makes it much more easier to read, but also easier to read in the screen reader as well. Last couple of things then, avoid using blank spaces or lines to create formatting or space. So again, we've got a big space here. Again, reason being is that if the student is using a screen reader, they're going to get to the end of this page and then think actually the document's ended, where actually we've got an additional point at the bottom there. So avoid big spaces like that. And then the last thing, I know a lot of people will actually upload their Word documents into the VLE, but I think probably the best thing to do is in terms of creating or turning your Word document into a PDF. And again, the main reason for that is that a lot of our students, or probably the majority of our students, are going to read these documents through some sort of mobile device, through their phones, through e-readers, or tablets or what have you. And having it in a PDF will structure the document and it won't lose the formatting when people come to read it. So the easiest way to do that is to go back up to the file, top left hand corner, and go save as. And when we save the document, at the moment it's got the file name, but below that it's got save as type. Rather than Word document, if we click on that, we go on the drop down box, we've got the option of PDF. So we click on PDF, and it's worth just checking the options and making sure document structure tags for accessibility. So making sure that that little tick is clicked, that tick is there for that particular option. It is probably the default setting, so you probably won't have to change that, but make sure that's actually switched on. So actually when you come to save that document, it will now be saved as a PDF, and you can upload that directly into Moodle. Okay, that's it in terms of my presentation. I just want to go back to my slides now, so I'm just going to go back to a couple of things and just a couple of resources that I want to show you before we finish up. So again, just give it a couple of seconds while the screen reloads. Okay, so what you should see in front of you now is my slides again. So in terms of if you do need further support, if you click on the blue button at the top of the right, once you're in Moodle, of Moodle support, that will take you to links to some online guides. So I mentioned the Moodle baseline, which is the template document for Moodle, that's up there, and we'll be creating some extra resources in terms of Moodle accessibility there as well, so they will be there. Also, there will be access to the digital skills team, a link up there as well, so they can give you help with these documents as well. Furthermore, here are some useful links to some places that are worth going if you want some additional information. So obviously the Microsoft Accessibility video training, I will upload the PowerPoint slides with the videos as well, so that you can click on these links. But also if you just Google that, Microsoft Accessibility video training, goes through basically all the features I just talked about there. I've added some links to a couple of other universities, a report on what's actually happening and why it's happening, and a report from JISC as well, and also the Association for Learning Technologies blog post, which gives some useful information as well. All right, I think that's it. Oh, sorry, just to remind you, next week we'll be doing a similar webinar on PowerPoint and Excel, and then the week after we'll be looking at images and recordings as well. All right, okay, I think that's it then. Hopefully, Bethan, you managed to get the sound switched on. Not sure if you have, but if you haven't, I'll make sure this link is available to you. Okay, I don't have any other further questions, so I'm going to stop the recording there, but I will leave the room open for a little while. Thank you.